of verification and validation. The technical one, the systemic one, and the philosophical one. I got in this problem several years ago, about 4 years ago, because the method that we were using in verification validation were not working. Everything was being done as they should, but the system were not working. The user was refusing the systems. At the time, I was working in software-based software engineering, software-based information system engineering. Okay, and almost the 80%, 90% of what we did professionally and academically was a disaster. A disaster as a lot larger than the American disaster at the time, that the effectiveness was just 32%. Our effectiveness was 15%. Effectiveness measured as line of codes in use divided by the total line of code. So it's a different concept, effectiveness than efficiency. Efficiency, how many person hours you need to make 100 or 1,000 lines of code. So it's completely different. So our percentage in Venezuela about 40 years ago, it was a lot lower than the American percentage, which also was low, 30%, 32%. So we said we have to do something. Let's see what's the meaning of verification and validation. Not just to accept the meaning that are in books. Just let's see it. And as many of you can remember from the books, validation comes from the Latin veritas, which is truth. And validation etymologically has the same root, etymological root, than value. So truth and value are completely different, because 2 plus 2 is truth, isn't it? Has no value for you because you knew that already. Okay? So you can have a lot of situations when you have the truth, but has no value at all. And many situations when you have something valuable, but it's not truthful. For example, ask any politician. Okay? Not any politician, ask any manager. Ask any super user, which means the boss of the users. Even ask the users about that. Because all of them, they have their secret agenda. When both things exist at the same time, they have a cybernetic relationship. Because through value, you can find the truth that are related to this value, not the other one that they told you. And vice versa. So when you can find both of them at the same time, they have cybernetic, relationship, complementing each other in a cycle. Here, this is something that I would like to let you know, that in Spanish, válido, which means value, valid. Okay? In Spanish, it does not come from Latin. It comes from Arabic. From wali. Wali means gobierno, to govern, to administrate. So I bring this metaphor in order to insist that value is not just the user value, but the boss of the user value. I make the client value, because many times the client is not the user of the system, the client is the one who's paying you, which is the boss of the user, or the boss of the boss, or the boss of the boss of the boss. So you are dealing with several layers of hidden agendas. And you have to be sure about what you are doing. So this is why I prefer to bring, the value into account, because in Spanish has another root. In information system, there is something evident, but I don't know why it's so evident that few people see it. In information system, we have the technical part, the software engineering part. But we have a more complex things, which is the human part. Because the software part is data processing. The only way to have information is to have some human being interpreting the information. If not, you don't have information system. You have data processing systems. So computer engineer, almost in most universities that I know about, the 99% of the curricula is here. So how we are supposed to expect them to know that? Here they need artificial language to validate it and verify it, etc., etc. But here they need the natural language. If you need the natural language, you need the Greek trivium, which means grammar, dialectic, and rhetoric. And rhetoric, you need ethos, pathos, and logos. And the trivium in the medieval age was so common, everyone knew it, that it was called, the word trivial comes from there. Trivial, everyone knows that. But in the 21st century, it's not trivial. We just said that just the 50% of the population of the state know how to read. How many of these people are our users? So this is the situation we are dealing with. Microsoft does not have this situation because they work in software and they interact with marketing people. But when you are developing a customized information system, you have to deal with users and with their bosses. So the human problem is a huge problem, which is the computer engineer start to know about that about 5-6 years after failing. What's going on has happened to us.
Sorry. So it seems to you are doing a very strong difference between machine and human. I'm not very.
I'm talking not just about machine, human.
But
I'm talking about human and human.
Yes, and electronic data processor. But I mean, for 3 weeks ago, for the first time, people was able to develop programs, bits to go bond masters. And this is bringing the two languages very close together, because the Go game is a game in comparisons to chess. So there's very few rules, maybe 3 or 4. So this means the machine has to be creative. So there is no play that if you look at the classical chess programs, the machines just look back what they've been done in that situation.
You are right, but I'm not talking about that.
No, okay.
I'm talking about the programmer programming the machine that got to interview the user to see what's gonna program. And to be sure that what he's gonna ask for, his boss wanted, because the boss is the one who's paying me. So, you're right on what you are saying, that these things got to be programmed, and someone has to program it, and for that you have to make requirement engineering in order to know what he wants. Maybe he wants something that the boss doesn't want, or vice versa. Yes. So how you deal with that if you don't do it in English, in Brazilian, or in Spanish, or Portuguese, or, you see what I mean? So you cannot do that in COBOL. You cannot do that, in C. You cannot do that in a machine language. You need a human language to deal with that.
Do you allow me to
sure.
to be politically correct?
Please do that.
What I'm talking about is his machines beating the world master in Go games. It's the programs programming himself, so it has a very high level learning capabilities. It's something completely different. So
and how about if they are learning not the hidden agenda of the user?
I don't know, but this is only the first level machine.
No, you're right.
I mean, and we go further, so it will become very teeny to make the difference between what is a machine conversations and what is a human conversation.
That's what I'm trying to do with this with this diagram, to separate them. They are related but are completely different. Completely related but completely different. So we cannot educate our computer engineers just with the machine language. No matter how good is the machine language and how high it is, we need to teach him also how to talk in Spanish or in English or Portuguese. So you need the natural language. So people end up, learning that by experience, dealing with users, and this is why in the States you need an average of 7 years to get from programmer to analyst.
Nagib, if you've ever sat in a UAT session where you're saying, okay, we need to do software that does this and this and this and this and this, and then 3 days later you're still going over, oh, in terms of the process, we don't do that, we do it this way. Well, there was misunderstanding from the communication in the beginning, and that's how they got there, and they didn't go through the flow and what they needed to do from the beginning, so of course it's a communication.
Of course, every time in the last 4 years that we signed a contract with the client.
But the only way that student, that programmer, is going to learn the process is to physically be in the setting where they can practice.
Of course, but he needs to know the Spanish if he's going to talk in Spanish.
Okay.
And he needs ethos.
That's right.
In order people to respect him or her, you see. Because if you don't have ethos, you don't have credibility.
Right.
So no one is going to listen to you. If you don't have pathos, to have emotion that you can communicate your emotion, positive and negative. If you are not able to communicate your emotion, you are in problem. If you don't have the right logos, because one thing is the technical logos, and another thing completely different is the human logos. Sometimes even it's different logic. It's a means-end logic, which is different to predicate logic and formal logic and syllogism and all that. It's an end-mean logic which is completely different.
But you need to merge the two, right? Because
Yeah, of course.
as Henry Ford once put it, if he'd asked his customers what they wanted, they would have wanted a faster horse.
Right.
in the relation, this is a necessary condition, which is what he's going to talk about. But it's not sufficient. You need this part also to verify and validate this part also. And the only way to do it in this part is with natural language and with corporal language and with pathos, ethos, etc., etc. The Greek trivium, you need that. I'm not talking about the Greek trivium 2,500 years ago. I'm talking about updating that trivium, which is not trivial anymore in our society, regretfully. Okay, I'm going to go quickly because you're going to have that in. Our problem started in software. We started applying that to information system with no software. Non-software based on information system. And then one of the classes of information systems that are not based on software is educational systems. So we applied all the methodology that we developed for the software to educational system. That was in the 94. So you got the links here. That's going to be we're going to post that in the web. Anyone who would like to read that thing. So I just, got some picture from there, some diagram to see it quickly. Kind of quality. Here we are talking about systemic quality. Global systemic quality, not systematic one, like the one used in the technical verification. It's not systematic. The systematic is a necessary condition, the technical part, but it's not sufficient condition in the information system. You need a systemic global quality. So you need to manage the system efficiency and the system effectiveness. When I'm talking about the system here, I'm talking about the information system or the educational system. And you can be looking, you should be looking at the product and the process, not just the product. The 90% of what you got published in verification and validation is about the product. So if you don't have verification of the process, and then after 2 years, you cannot validate the product, you lost the 2 years that you are doing. And if it is an educational system, you hurt your students. Because you did the wrong way, because you were not verifying and validating the process with which you are doing that. So this is the usual area that you find in the books. These are less usual, these areas. So my message is look for these areas that are not that frequent in the books. The objective, again, efficiency and effectiveness. Product and process, the same as before. But applying here a qualitative operation research paradigm, I will propose here to maximize the efficiency subject to the product effectiveness. Because why you want to make a software, in 3 days if no one is going to use it? Because the effectiveness is how much of the software are you using. And then here maximize the product subject to the process efficiency. Because you have limited amount of money. And here maximize the process efficiency subject to the process effectiveness. And this is the key, the Pope here, Maximize the process effectiveness, which what you should do. Because everything is depending on that. Subject to to external restrictions.
Nagib, we could use the example of 3D printing we just looked at, where they were trying to kind of hide, thank you for bringing out that, you know, there's some issues there with uptime. That's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, and
Okay,
I
I can
mentioned
go
this
back.
about when we talk about efficiency and natural language, that the most efficient way to use natural language isn't necessarily the same as being efficient when you're going from point A to point B. Because natural language, if you want to bring in the pathos, you have to leave room, and you actually need to create room that invites someone to fill in the gap. So you almost have to be purposely inefficient
Of course.
in order to be efficient.
In dynamic systems,
Right.
which is almost every system, there is no way to increase both effectiveness and efficiency, because Ashby law,
Because they
variety Ashby, requisite variety law. The more adaptable you want to use system, the more entropy you should have inside. That the more entropy you have inside, the less efficient is the system. So when you are trying to adapt the system to unforeseen circumstances, you need to have different ways to manage it. That means that to be more effective, you have to pay the cost of lowering the efficiency.
or you have to have better governance.
Well, you see, because if you go up with the efficiency in the dynamic system, that means adaptation. If you go up with the efficiency, the cost is to lower the effectiveness. So to differentiate between efficiency and effectiveness is extremely important. Because in many cases, I would say in most cases, they are opposite to each other. So the manager should find the trade-off between efficiency and not the user, but the client who's paying me got to take that decision.
Right, but you need to
It's a trade-off. This is not a technical question. This is a managerial question. It's a trade-off, and that depends on your experience, on what you want, on what you cannot explain, and your hidden agenda. That depends on all that.
It also depends on the model for reserves, dealing with contingency.
Of course.
Authority and responsibility.
Of course.
Dealing.
Of course. So there is no way to increase efficiency without hurting the effectiveness of any system, especially the educational system.
But part of the problem is that we are defining efficiency as something that isn't natural in the world. The world isn't efficient. The world goes in all different directions. So we have the wrong definition of efficiency.
No.
No.
It's ineffectiveness. He's
No.
saying the world's effective, then there's another metric called efficiency. And isn't it interesting, as the effectiveness goes up, the efficiency goes down? So there are some systems, not real life, where you're interested in efficiency, because it takes.
Right.
And then
And
here
you
what-
want to get from here to here.
You have
And
the right
that's, yeah,
definition of
and
efficiency.
so when it's a very closed
Yes,
system.
but if you're talking about the real world, you want it to be effective. You don't want
Right,
the real world to be
right.
This is the same, the diagram we said before, that taking into account that the differences between user and client. Okay? So we have a cube here. If you are working in an incremental methodology that we worked, each week we test the prototype and verify the prototype and validate the prototype each week. And we've been for 4 years that we didn't sign any contract in which the client would not assure us that we're gonna have at least 2 or 3 hours from him and from his people. Otherwise, we would not take the contract. incremental planning of the project, which is something that was written in the 71 by Braybrook. So we are not inventing here anything, we are just adapting the incremental planning to the way of making verification and validation, you see. So this cube, each week is changing, or might change, sorry. Each week would change. From the beginning, each week, or each day, or each month, okay? Up to the end. And then you have the meta cube, which is a cube of cubes.
And now you call it agile.
Yes. But that was before the agility methodology. Long before the agility movement. This paper, which is applying all what we've been doing to the educational system, is from the 94. So it was before. So I prefer to bring something very old to tell you that is so evident. I really don't know why still you can find people that cannot see it. It's so evident that you can do nothing with the system, the best system in the world in efficiency. Not just the system in efficiency, but the project. Because the project you did it at the lowest cost possible. And the system is working just like that. If no one is using it. So why I need to be more efficient at paying the cost of effectiveness? Why? So this is the proposal: effectiveness, efficiency, product, process, client, user, and incrementalism. So the technical part is a necessary condition, but in my experience was never sufficient. So that's relate now to.
There are cases, certainly from a logical point of view, and if I define effective, and I've seen this also with what, and then it's another ego judgment. If I define effective, that is producing a desired effect as efficient, to equate.
Desired effect or defect?
No, effect.
Oh, okay.
If I define effective, that is producing a desired result.
Okay,
right?
the way I define effective and efficiency is as follows.
You need, that's what you need.
Efficiency is a relationship between output and input. Effectiveness is the relationship between the output and the objectives that you were looking within these outputs. So effectiveness is related to objectives. And these objectives are related to the user and to the client. Not to me as computer technician.
In government accounting.
So what you're doing,
There's a distinction between output, which is what you're talking about on efficiency.
Yeah.
And outcome.
Outcome.
Which is the extraordinarily difficult thing that you probably can't always do quantitatively.
so you're basically saying that abbreviation is going to compromise the completeness of something. That's in essence what you're saying. You're saying that the abbreviation is going to compromise the totality, which makes sense, compromise the totality of the result. So
Yeah, but the totality of the result depends if you are looking on efficiency or effectiveness.
yeah, that's what gets
We are in the same situation again.
Yeah, but it's good, I think it's going to, the way you define the situation is going to determine it.
I mean, no matter how you call it, Tololo and Kilili, but they are different concepts, efficiency and effectiveness. Call it whatever you want to call it. So it's not a semantic problem. Conceptually, they are completely different. And they go against each other in many times.
Many times, but not.
So no matter how you call it, you see what I mean?
Many times.
It's just a concept.
Yeah, I don't want to universalize it, but it's, many times they do go against each other, but not always.
No,
Yeah.
not, almost always they go against each other, because what she said. Almost always. I'm talking about dynamic system, okay? And we are in dynamic world. So our system are more or less dynamic, because we are in a dynamic world. Remember Heraclitus. The only thing that doesn't change is change. So,
Well, as examples, I think in the educational thing, improving the life of our students is an outcome. Spending less money is an output.
yes, you're right. This is one of the disagreements I have here with Dr. Blair. Because I see a learning very important innovation, even necessary in our world. But it's not sufficient. Because e-learning is oriented mostly, not uniquely, to efficiency. But what's effectiveness? Anyone measure the effectiveness, the educational effectiveness, are not meaning instructional effectiveness. Okay? Because instruction, in my opinion, is a means to achieve education. So we cannot confuse means with ends, because that's corrupt the intellect.
No, the usual issue we come up
All right,
with.
getting back to basically saying that we're missing the gestalt of education. You've got a component, which is need learning, blah, 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 blah. I think it's what we're saying, he's saying that there's a gestalt. And I have a friend up there, customer.
We are missing, I don't know if the gestalt, that depends on what the gestalt means. If it's a, we are missing the ends of the education.
Well, it's the
The
gestalt.
usual way of dealing with that, when we get into discussions where people are trying to define effectiveness, is in terms of stories of success. That's usually the way we do it, and it's very difficult to make those quantitative. All kinds of political difficulties follow immediately.
You're completely right. There is few situations in which we can quantify the effectiveness. In another work, I have the matrices of the what and why.
Yeah, it's Inventor.
And then the what, how you achieve it,
That's so subjective.
with the how in order to achieve the why. So these matrices with the how I achieve the what are what we call effectiveness matrices. So in the case that you are talking about, each cell got to be the consequence of a collective decision making, not of a bureaucrat.
Nagib, I think you're overlooking the institutions of higher education have to be funded. The way they're funded is through efficiency. You say,
Yeah.
we produce people that can go into your workplace and work. And unfortunately, the ends of education they're an advertising thing. You say this is what we want to do, but it's not what they want to do. They want to be funded. To be funded, they have to produce people who will fit in. And unfortunately, you don't have to be a well-rounded thinking person for that. There are things people do. They have a liberal arts curriculum. They want people exposed to one or two courses. But this is like a barrier that will prevent people from reaching the ends of education. I mean,
Of course, this is what I'm trying to convey. In the case of education, in the case of software, he would take the technical part.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let me give a brief introduction of myself. My name is Sushil Acharya, professor of software.
I'm sorry I didn't introduce him. I met him in Thailand in a conference that we were there.
Yeah.
And my kids, youngest kid was born after
He came back from Thailand.
after I went to Thailand, because I was laughing and joking about being behind, taking picture behind the fertility tree in a monastery.
Okay.
So after that, you know, the fertility tree worked out. And then today I introduced him to the product of the fertility tree, which is my kids.
It worked out pretty
Since
well.
then we have, you know, strong
Strong bond.
relationship bond, you know, and so it's a natural and supernatural bond.
So thank you for the kind introduction. Once again, the name is Cecilia Chari. I'm a professor of software engineering at Robert Morris University, which is a small private university in southwestern Pennsylvania. We have bigger universities, but ours is a small one that focuses more on applied engineering. So you just heard about the philosophical part of verification and validation. So what I'm going to talk about is the applied side. Okay, just as this gentleman just mentioned just now. Okay, like who's going to fund this? Who's going to give money to make sure that yes, we do use verification and validation in software development? It is a big issue, but at the same time, it is an important issue. It is an important issue. So I did make some points, and let me try to cover up a couple of things that I have done. Okay, my interest in verification and validation goes back when I was in the industry. Having worked 15 years in the industry, I need to go to the academia and talk about what the industry needs. Okay, somehow, maybe you may agree, you may not. The industry and academia in the software field is a two-way street. It's not a one-way street. Okay, we have to understand that. It's not like physics, chemistry, where we have scientists who say this is it, and then the applied side goes on in the industry. So, back in 2003, when I started teaching a course on software verification validation, I kind of input some of the thoughts that I felt was important in my course. And immediately, 17 of my students got internship, and eventually more than 50% of them got a job, because they talked about topics like software review, requirements ambiguity, configuration management. Okay, if you think about it, these are important things. Again, we come back to the thought of saying effectiveness and efficiency. Yes, everyone wants an effective software that works. Okay, the way I look at efficiency would mean is a customer requirement. Some may say yes, we want our database to be read of 10,000 queries in 5 milliseconds. Some may say, you know what, 10 milliseconds is fine for us. So it is so much dependent on an individual. So what had happened was that with my interest in verification and validation, for some of you, you just saw the philosophical definition. What I'm going to talk about is the applied definition. We say verification means to say that, are you building the product right? You see what I mean? Are you building the product right? So if you go down to the core of software development, program coding, are you using the right data structures? If that's not happening, efficiency is not going to happen. Effectiveness is not going to happen. Okay? So verification, we talk about, are you building the product right? But then the validation part is more important. Are you building the right product? Now, I think, if you think about it going back in time, the waterfall model talks about testing is the last phase, almost near to the last phase of software development. That is where the customer will say, you know what, no, this is not what I wanted. There you go back down in time. If this is a 15-day project, which was not the case, you're good. But this is usually a 4-year project, and you come back and you say, it's not what I want, and you have to make changes. So this is where we differentiate between verification and validation. Validation is, are we building the right product? That means the customer is going to accept. After all, at the end, when you're done with software development, we need to have validation testing, acceptance testing. That's when the customer is going to say, yeah, I like it. This is exactly what I want. Okay? And then verification means to say that, are we using the right tools? Are we using the right process to make the right software? So what I ended up doing was that because my students had success, I went and applied for a National Science Foundation grant. I got the grant. Okay, of course, all of you know National Science Foundation grant is not easy to get. Okay, it took me 3 years, but I got it. Eventually I got it.
Just 2 years?
3 years, it's so much. And then what I did was that one of the core, I would say, points in my proposal was that I'd like to work with the industry. I'd like to bring the industry together. We're gonna work together. We're gonna understand what they want from my students, okay? After the late 1990s, I would say the IT burst, okay? A lot of software development hanging in balance, lots of layovers. What happened was that, layoffs, okay? What happened was that software companies were not willing to train new hires. They expected every new hire to come with the skills so they can perform from day one. Okay. And again, as I go back, I said, I'm from an applied university. I teach software engineering. I train my students so that when they work, they know what they're working on from day one. Okay. So I created a team where I had 5 industry partners, 2 other academic partners. I used Virginia State University and Milwaukee School of Engineering. They both have strong software engineering, information science programs. And then I also recruited 7 universities to say, you know what, we're going to come up with what we call active learning tools. Class exercises, case studies, and videos that teach what happens in the industry. What do the industry want? If we come up with this, can you teach it? And yes, all of these universities. So in a matter of time, we came up with these products. Right now, we have with us 42 hours of active learning tools. These tools are freely available to everyone. And if you're wondering what those tools are about, this is what I'm going to talk in my next page, okay? So as of yesterday, I have 24 partners, meaning to say that these universities, ranging from Montana Tech, okay, going to Fairfield University in Connecticut, okay, down to Embry-Riddle University in Florida, okay, these university professors are using most of our or some of our active learning tools. We are focusing on 4 areas that are important. Day 1, when I teach my course on software verification validation, I say, you know what, if you are a fruit farm and you want to grow apples, let's say for example, you want to grow apples, you know, if you just plant a seed and then you have to wait 5 years for it to grow, okay? And then you say, you know what, this is not what I want. Think about it. Think about it. What are you going to do? 5 years you've invested, you waited to grow apples, and now you can't use it. So what I say is that the seed, take a look at the seed. You pay careful attention to the seed, because the seed is an important factor. And of course, the environment around it helps, right? So when we talk about software development, we talk about requirements. Are we talking to the customer enough? Are we trying to make sure that ambiguity gets addressed? Because that is the key problem for us when we start talking to customers, okay? Sometimes we say that we know more than you, which is absolutely wrong. We know the technical side, but they know the user side. They know what they want more. We know how to build them, okay? So there needs to be some type of communication that's an ongoing communication between the user side as well as the practitioner side, okay? So my focus here is the tools that we've come up with is on requirements management. There are exercises on ambiguities. Okay. There are exercises which help us create an IEEE template of the software requirement specification document. Okay. There are exercises on software reviews. Okay. How many of us have written something and then we take a look at it after an hour? Maybe we sleep over it, take a look at it the next day, and we see some more mistakes. Okay, this is the problem.
But isn't there more of a foundational flaw in that someone who is drawn to the field of software, I'm not going to say everyone, I'm going to say most people, they're math, science people, many of them would be real happy working in a little cube and just writing programming code, and when you're telling them, okay, you need to have constant communication with a customer, you need to gain communication and understanding with a client, and these are all the steps. This is so foreign to them that how do we make that work?
I totally agree. So this is where the team comes in. This is the
This is what
software
agile-
development.
But isn't this what agile programming is all about? This whole thing started with this extreme program, which we really don't want to do, in rapid prototype development, but then they went to agile, which seems to be more
Agile.
essential. That's the solution you're talking about, I would think.
Not all the way, not all the way.
really.
Okay, Agile is there.
Yeah.
But we're gonna have tomorrow, or day after tomorrow, Stantish Group giving statistics about their, you know, the
Yeah.
last
And
findings.
that's a start.
With all what you are saying, the advancement was a micro advancement.
There are other tools other than.
The Stantish Group is here and not tomorrow, day after tomorrow, they are in the plenary session and they are talking about these problems.
Standish is here.
Yeah.
Jesus, how
Yeah.
did
The Stantish Group are
How
here.
did you do that?
Bueno.
What-
And then the report, annual report, you can see it, there is not much advancement.
Yeah, but see, there are other tools. Agile is just a sort of a collection of development methodologies, but what's widely being used now is vectors engineering and user interface prototype development to work with the user. And you find out a lot that way. You don't even need to use sophisticated tools, you can use independent drawings.
It's kind of like garden, kind of like on the same part as garden. You get Standish, pull up, cool.
Okay, let me kind of address this real quick. I'll come back to you, okay, 1 minute. So here we're talking about, okay, you know, computing field. I try to show 5 fingers, and I tell everyone, this is the computing field. Computer engineering, computer science, information technology, software engineering, right? There you go. Now, what happens is that you have to understand that software development is a team. Okay? Now, if you're talking about algorithm, which computer science, they're computer scientists. Now, for them, they may not need to interact with the customer so much. It is their requirements manager who is the interface between the customer and themselves. So what we kind of emphasize on is communication. Let the requirements manager, the team lead, communicate with his scientist, her scientist more. And then, of course, this individual will talk to the customer also. And for that matter, it will kind of work out. Now, I'm going to come to you, okay? And then, definitely, yes, sir, I agree. Agile method, okay? I'm sure everyone has heard about the Agile method, and the whole idea here is that, you know what, your queue, make some room, let the customer in. That's what the Agile method talks about. And many of us are not open to these yet. It's not possible, okay? So what we're saying here in some of the materials that I present is that you don't have to do it. Make a software development plan where you do talk to customers at certain times without having them plug in, okay? Say, for example, you write the software requirement specification. Don't just keep one meeting, keep maybe 2 or 3. So you can go back and forth and let them say, okay, this is it, sign off on it. Because in the past, and that's what the Standish Group may talk about, because in the past, we've just taken what the customer had said, and then we come in and we start assuming, hey, maybe this is what they want, let's make this. So let's not do that, because that's a waste of time. That's a waste of time. I'm gonna come to you after I, okay?
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that you were explaining right now, and back to your question, how can we actually do this? How to convince the people who are coming from the basic science, let's say, to communicate, or as I would say, to collaborate, because communication, that is only like just exchanging ideas maybe, and that's it. And in marketing, we call it like concept science to business marketing. How can we hear the needs, pains, expectations of our customers? And one way how we can do it is, for example, I don't know, maybe building TTOs, technology transfer offices, knowledge transfer office, or just have, as you said, a person who is particularly responsible for building such kind of relationships with businesses, or as in your case with the software customers.
Right. So let me kind of talk about a couple of these things. What you're saying is exactly true. This is the problem the industry is having. They hire computer scientists and information system people. They can communicate.
Exactly.
You see what I mean? They can communicate. You wouldn't believe it. These 5 industries that I have partnered with, I go and lecture. I provide my training materials for them. And we have done it in such a way that these training materials are 25 minutes duration. even in the workplace, they can still learn. And that's their biggest frustration. I bring them in, I have to talk about requirements engineering. And so this is where curriculum change in certain universities, as you're saying, yeah, not, maybe business might be another way, but adding a few courses would
Yes, exactly.
somehow, right? That would help for these people to be able to understand why. Because the workplace is changing. It's not like what it was in the past. It's changing.
And communication is not everything. I mean, communication means speaking. Communication means listening, shouting, I'm sorry. And collaboration is actually listening to the needs of the customers. Therefore, there is a need to build a trustful relationships with those kind of parties.
No, I agree with you, sir. Please, sorry about that. You're the last.
I'm a little bit more on the user side, like
Right.
the client, but I've been a boss of the people who do the programmers and then try and work, and so what I have noticed is that we can't build perfect products because the clients don't know what they want. And so it doesn't matter how much you interview them, they don't know what they want. And so they don't find out what they want until you give them something to use. That's when they say, first of all, they say, that's not what I wanted. Or second, they say, oh, I can do this, and I want to do this and this and this. And all of a sudden, there's so many ideas, but it hasn't been structured. And so you actually need to tear everything down and build again.
Yes.
And so that's why I think this iterative thing is right, and that you actually need to do kind of a straw man thing, and then say, here, what do you think of this? How does-
Each week. Each week.
Every week.
Every week.
Because what happens
If you
is-
can do it daily, better.
That's what happens in the brain.
Because
of
there
the
is a
user.
learning process.
The
They don't
user
know what they
starts
want.
using it, and then all of a sudden they
But
say,
they need to
oh,
learn
wow.
it.
But they don't understand what they
Yes,
can possibly do.
yes.
And
So
as soon
you
as
have-
they start doing it, then they get, oh, wow, I could do
This
this.
is why they
and
get-
I want that reporting. Can you make this be automatic? And
Yes.
yes.
No, I totally agree with you 100%, and that's where we say we as software developers,
Yeah.
we as requirements engineers,
And that's
we
what-
as business analysts
Yes.
should do a better job of making them understand. Definitely, you'll be
But
surprised that,
it's
when
not there for them to know what they don't understand.
Most of
so
them,
that's
they-
why I like
they
all
need
of
their
your,
learning
the
process
system requirements and
to
the
know what they want.
specifications, because you're kind of saying, okay, I'm telling you what you need to do, but in order for it to have a good outcome, what you really want is for them to be able to develop the ability to communicate to you what they want.
You see why it is so related to education? Because you need a learning process
Yeah,
during the
there has to be
process
a
of the
learning
project.
process.
You
And
need
then-
a
so
learning
the
process.
programmers need to protect
So they
themselves.
know, they start knowing what
I
they
know, I
want.
totally agree. That's where we have the baseline.
Yeah.
We do
Yeah.
need to have a
Yeah.
baseline, we do need to understand that
This
after
is why we
this,
ended
more
up-
requirements, means more money, more time, so we have to have a cutoff time, all of that becomes important.
Yeah.
That's where the agile programming kind of picks up better, because now you're building smaller chunks, not
Right,
bigger.
right, 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 right,
Right?
exactly.
And the
exactly.
smaller chunks, they
Yeah,
change, it's what,
exactly.
2 weeks, 6 weeks?
Yeah,
You
right,
still
you
change.
can reuse them and,
There you go.
yeah, right.
So it is perfectly works fine. So I could.
This is something missing in the software engineering. Huh? You can take any software engineering book, well, at least any one of of those that I saw, okay? And no one shows that there is a learning process in the project, not just for the computer people.
But for
All
the
of them,
client-
they talk about the learning process through the project for the computing people, but almost no one of them talk about the learning process of the user, because usually user would not know what they want.
Right.
So they need a learning process.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting topic. So one of my exercises asks the student team. Okay, so I have teams, everyone works in teams. But my classroom is a flipped classroom model. I don't lecture. I have my lecture materials, they read at home, they come in, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, question answers. In fact, if they don't ask me questions, I start asking them questions, so next time they start studying. And then we move on to hands-on immediately. Okay, here's one of the exercises that I do. I tell them, you know what, this is a brick and mortar company that needs to come up with a, web design, web page. So let's come up with the requirements. So this team here comes up with the requirements, and I give it to this team and this team to design that, and you'll see the difference.
Yes.
I'm gonna
It's
take
going to be different. It's going to be different. Then I ask this team to go and verify which one do you want, and they know which one do they want because of that, but they still say, no, some of these are not. So this is where the communication you're saying needs to take place. Okay? I'm a huge advocate of communication, okay, and it's so important, but we need to understand this whole process is costly also.
Let me say something that is gonna sound self-promotion, but it's not. Because I'm not here, you know, to develop any system for you. Okay? Our number went from less than 15% of effectiveness during 100 projects in the university to 80% of effectiveness. Since then, we started our consulting firm. So I saw that in the consulting firm, because that was the test, the real life test. We kept the 80% with that incremental methodology. So you know what I did for 25 years? All the contracts we are signing to develop information system by contract, so it's legal. There is nothing statistical error because it's something written in the contract. The client paid just for the line of code that are being used. If you ask me for something that you are not using it, we don't charge you. So I am assuring to the client 100% of effectiveness because I already know that our effectiveness is 80%. So I increase in 20% the costs, and I can assure the client, you pay just for what you use. So I got some greedy clients who says, I don't want that. Okay, you give it to me. No. No, if you don't use it, I'm removing.
This exercise that we did, the hypothesis here was that active learning tools help a student understand software development best practices. Okay, once again, active learning tools help students understand software development best practices. The reason we say that is that where and when will our students learn what the industry needs if they're not able to practice? Okay? If students go out and look for internships, guess what? They're not going to get it because they don't have hands-on practice. If students go out to get a job, they're not going to get it. So what we've done here is that this has been my signature course, okay, since 2003, and I'm so grateful that all of my students get a job because of this. Okay. They go to job interviews with SRS that they have created, IEEE format. They go to job interviews talking about software reviews. They talk about defect life cycles, configuration management. So it just makes it a whole lot easier. But what we did was that definitely, yes, for the past 3 years, we've been assessing student outcomes, student learning. Ours is an engineering institute, so our accreditation is by ABIT. Okay, we use ABIT accreditation. But we use ABIT outcomes and mapped it to Bloom's taxonomy. And using that, we did our assessment. And we have drawn at a conclusion saying that, yes, this definitely works. This definitely works. My presentation is on Friday where I talk about video case studies and effectiveness. Okay. However, 42 hours of active learning tools in the form of class exercises, case studies, video case studies, okay, are available free for anyone that is interested. Okay. And then, I'm just going to make a sales pitch here. August 11 and 12, we are doing a workshop. Okay, now unfortunately this is only available for US citizens, US universities. If you are interested in attending this workshop, it's a day and a half where we take you through these things and then we hand over the materials to you and you can use it in your class. Okay, now this is not only for the university, let me say it again, because we came up with 25 minutes. Okay, each of these exercises are 25-minute modules. So if you combine two, you get a 50-minute class. If you just take one, you can deliver it in the industry. Okay, and my 5 industry partners, they are using this and they are happy with what they've seen. Okay, So the way I look at it is that verification and validation is very important. Okay, the cost is high, but it is up to us to make the customer understand that either you're not going to use it down the road, you're going to shelf the product, or you're going to be happy with the product and you're going to start using it. So it's either later or earlier that we have to make them understand. And that's, I think, what the standards group is going to be talking about. Because back in 1994, I think all of us know that only 32% of software projects were successful. Okay, remaining were challenged or failed. Huge number. Okay, and we're trying to improve that. So the main focus in the material that we have come up with is that help students build quality software. I'm going to stop here.
So he's gonna end up with this session and then related to the next one, because the next one of the presenter is driving, so he's not here. So we're gonna switch the last one with the next one. So we are going now into the last one. And then the one before the last one will be the last one.
While he's bringing the file up.
Okay, I need the paper that you've been signing and putting your names. Okay, everyone in this session did that? Please do it.
Did we sign
As
it
soon
once
as
again?
possible. No, this session.
No, this is another one. My God, I
No,
I had
okay,
almost
let me
four of them.
explain. Let me explain. Each session, the attendees of each session have the option of writing an invited paper related to what's going on in the session. It's going to be a reflection paper on what's going on and talking about their experiences and reflections. So this is why it's going to be an invited paper. It's going to be, if we receive it 3 weeks after the conference is over, we can include it in the post-conference volume of the proceedings as invited paper. Invited reflection paper. Because the idea is that the conference should not be should not have just the input of paper, but should have also output papers. That was the original idea of the conferences at the beginning of the last century, so we are trying to go back to that. So in this session, to know who has this option, we need your names. And this is why I'm going in each session, we are giving that. So please, all that has been in the session of him, sign that, just to be sure that you have the option to write an invited paper. Because if you're not in the list, we're not going to accept the invited paper. So it's an invited paper in the sense that it has no cost, additional cost, and it's not going to be reviewed. That's the concept of invited paper. Well, it's going to be reviewed by internal review, not external review.
How much content do you need? How much content?
No more than 6 pages. Between 2 and 6. Because sometimes you don't have time for the 6, so you can write.
It's not going to be scientific in the way I did it.
Between 2 and 6.
Some words on the verification and validation. We heard the technological, we heard some philosophical perspectives. There's another one I want to give, another kind of a philosophical one that gets, I think, a lot deeper than really abstract. And it will lead into the next session, into the ethos, pathos, logos, and stuff like that. A quick note, the way I came about it's actually VBA, verification, validation, accreditation, was my experience at White Sands Missile. And we're dealing with the military, which had to be pretty much at attention on this all the time. Verification, oh yeah, that's fact. I told you to live in If you go to the IEEE International Institute for Electrical Electronics Engineering, you see a document, and it's kind of been superseded, it's going through transition. It's been in existence since 1998. It's called the IEEE 12207 Software Life Cycle. And these people here should be familiar. You're familiar with that document, I would think. That's pretty much the baseline. It came out of the Mill Handbook, the 1998 Mill Handbook on software development. There's a whole history I won't get into. Verification, in essence, is taking requirements documents and you're checking what you've developed against that requirements document to see if there's a match. Then there's a whole bunch of stuff into that 12207 going through acquisition all the way up to testing of bajillions of tests. The idea of the validation is to see whether or not what you've developed physically works, that does what you expect it to do. That's what validation is, at least in the military. Then once that is certified, you vet it. That's the accreditation. So now it's in common use. Those are the 3 steps. There's a whole process that you use also. You can go into MISCO, MSCO.mil. That's a Modeling and Simulation Coordination Office. I'll cover a little bit of that Friday in this talk I'll be giving. But that's where that kind of came about. You're familiar with 12207, and there's a bunch of other stuff going there. Zillions of standards there in terms of the other types of validation verification. There's a guy in Pennsylvania several years ago, they were working on a validation standard. A lot of that stuff came out of applied physics lab at Hopkins. And I came across it the other day, and it's just, my memory is fading on this stuff, but they've been trying to develop standards. That's kind of like where VBA is coming from. I refer to it as VBA, you have to have accreditation. Now, there's an origin to all this stuff, the philosophical origin. It's kind of like on what there is, you say in logic. Now, this wasn't exactly made for this talk, because there are 4 or 5 of these I guess I've been given. So I want to get into what this is supposed to be for another one. I'm going to get into what a system is, if this is the same one. Oh my God, I hate this damn Microsoft stuff. I used to work for Microsoft, and I'm not a fan of Microsoft, really not. Can't open the file, this is a bunch of crap.
I still got to find the first
Yeah, I have to
fan of
find
Microsoft. I'm 73 years old, I didn't find the first fan of Microsoft.
Oh, I got to think about it. That's why I got double pneumonia.
The worst operative system is the last one.
Yeah, I want to show you.
Take care of that.
I'm going to talk about it. Hell, this can't see that.
Take care of that. This is the worst thing that Microsoft did in all its life.
Well, I'll tell you, I got some words that are not printable. We're down over there eating.
My wife is suffering that.
Let's try this out. Here, what are we doing here about verification and validation? And what's it all about philosophically? All right, you got a smile on your face, and you can probably tolerate it. Tear that in half. Do this one, let's do it. Tear it in half. All right, tear it in half again.
Hey, what you have?
I want one of them.
Is this the list of the people?
No. I can't read the damn thing with that. I don't want. We tear it again. Do it again. There we go. Give me one of those things. I kind of like, tear it again. I kind of like a mafia. Come on, again. You got to keep doing this stuff, you know. You get down to the thing, and where the hell are your tweezers? You need to bring your tweezers, right? You keep doing that. There we go. Thank you. All right, no. This is to do this. Yeah. Where's your you need your tweezers and microscope. The hell with it. You're going to get frustrated. You've got to really get pissed off. What you're going to be doing, ultimately, if you keep doing that, this is everything on the table, you, me, and everything else. You keep doing that. You're going to get down to what level, ultimately?
H.
Huh?
H.
Right, exactly. That's blank scale.
Right.
But he got in his
Now.
hand the discipline.
Now we're getting somewhere. We're getting on the plank scale, everything in here. Now what you're doing in essence is you're getting down to what we talk about reality. See, all this validation and verification stuff, you're trying to figure out what comes out of here. In this it's interesting, where, I don't know if I diverge from you or not, I'm saying that the verification is true. So I come up with an idea, requirements, you see? And so I check what I've developed against the requirements, and that basically that is the truth. Now what I create up here, even if I can develop it, is that the truth. The truth then would be then testing to see whether or not that really happened. There's certain levels of this stuff. But I want to get down into notion what the truth really is. When I did that little exercise here, we're getting down into a philosophical approach to truth. We're getting down into Planck scale. And we get guys like Heisenberg and stuff like that. You get into quantum cosmology and stuff like this. Now what I've done, if you take a look at the basic logic, I know I kind of all over the map. You see, we put this thing together toward the end. What we got basically is a binary world, don't we? Kind of. And take this is what binary logic is all about. But logic is a language of innate order in the universe, really. The binary logic. If you look at the Wheeler, people like that, the it from bit, this kind of stuff. So what you're doing, in essence, is you're getting down into a world where you really get and you start wrestling with the concepts of verification about what is truth and what is up here in your head. Now, what we have is we have to kind of absorb an idea of how we apprehend something. I'll get to that binary in a second, because binary reflects this. And I'll get back to the verification and validation in a second. So you can put it all together, so coherent way. At least it's not the mornings, it would not be coherent. I'm wearing blue. Here's the why. Now you and I have had a conversation about blue. And you'll see this Friday in more detail. There's something called what I call the most fundamental law of understanding. If I turn the lights out in this room, nobody's going to see anything. Because there's no contrast, there's no anything at all. But if I start shading things, I start texturizing, like this line. This is why I wore this actually. I'm sure the fashion magazines, fashion magazines would be all over. This black line divides the two types of blue. Now you can see something in terms of what it is not, and that's your binary. Whatever, and this gets kind of strange on that Planck scale. But down at that level, particles kind of coming in and out of existence. You get the particle and what the particle is not. The particle is defined in terms of what that particle is not. Now I think this is where really a lot of philosophy comes. Now there's another thing, and these are kind of adjunctive concepts. Kind of keep that in focus for a second. Basically, how we apprehend something, how we know something or not. We'll get back to the verification and validation. It's like, how do you know that? The central philosophical problem, I'll get to the analogy in a second. The central philosophical problem shaping this, I think, came out of Plato. The whole idea of what reality is. Whether there's simply forms out there, and then Aristotle comes and says, well, the forms are really what we really have. The form of the acorn is the oak tree. That's ultimately what it becomes. Plato said, no, wait a minute. There's something called tableness, this being a table. There are problems with the theory, it's interesting. That basically up there, people like Tegmark, people like that are kind of alluding to this, Pythagoras, that the only form is number. It's very interesting. It's something that's beyond our immediate apprehension. And this is the form of the tableness, but this is an instance of it. That's an instance, that's an instance, stuff like that. We get to really what the reality is. And Heisenberg talked about, essentially, it's so uncertain. We don't know what comes in and out of existence. We reduce everything down to there's something called sub-Planck scale. Mathematically, correct me if I'm wrong, you could go forever. Now what happens when we get to that situation, when we go sub-Planck scale, we could be here forever.
But we don't know that. That's just what we're conjecturing.
Yeah, but it seems to be there.
Yes,
Now we get into you get this real weird stuff. Where you have these, well, like Linde, you have these basically brains, these dimensions in our universe
that ours is basically on the edge of another universe, and you start getting some very interesting philosophical questions. You take the singularity, and the singularity is supposed to contain everything that we are aware of. Material, so-called material, contained down to that Planck scale. So the one thing that we don't seem to be grappling with very well, ideas. What the hell are ideas? Now we say that our singularity contains everything that we have. What the hell's an idea? What is consciousness? Stuff like that. So we're getting little messy issues like this. Why I'm saying all this is that when we talk about verification and then ultimately validation, how do we really validate something? Because everything we do is biased anyway. So I say basically, how do we validate something? It is all subjective. We come down to this. And there is that uncertainty. And I'm not sure if we can validate. Now what we're dealing with when we get down into the so-called particles in that Planck scale, we ultimately wind up with, I think, what Hegel's talking about. Process is just as much a part of the object as the object itself. Right. Now, what the hell is down at that very Planck scale? What is it? Is that an object? If Heisenberg says it's uncertainty, you cannot measure momentum and position at the same time, you can look at that stuff. It's kind of an internal consistency there. It would suggest that there's no way of arresting that thing. There's a very, very simple reason for that. Very simple reason for that. We look at the sun, it's 8 minutes away, right? By the time you observe the sun, 8 minutes has elapsed. God knows where that thing could have been moved out in the middle of Jupiter somewhere, or out in the middle of Alpha Centauri. Sorry about that. So what we're looking at is what I call a perceptual lag. Now, even among Planck entities that approximate to each other, whatever the hell that means, computationally, there is that lag. Now that would suggest something else. If we get into this thing, we talk about particles. I'm not sure particles exist, first of all. But I think this is the idea of process. And this is where Whitehead comes in. It may be process that we're dealing with rather than objects, or vice versa, whatever the hell that is. And even that is binary. Now where am I going to go with all this stuff? This is the kind of stuff that I think is important in life in many ways. It'll drive me absolutely batty. I've gone beyond bad. You know, I don't, you know, but I'm still there. But what is it all about, Alfie, as they say? I remember there's a movie called that. I never saw it. But anyway, I like the expression. What's it all about, Alfie? Techne, we'll get to the techne.
The guy we were waiting for is here.
Who?
The guy we were waiting for. So you know
Why,
what
look.
that means?
Yeah.
What? Who?
The guy that we were waiting for the next session is here.
Okay, all right, so I should shut up and let him go. No, let me, all right, we're quick, all right. So I think in terms of what it is that we get into the idea of the technical, the techne and the episteme in education. The idea of the logos, pathos and ethos. What is this directed toward? The idea of learning, the love of learning, the philosophy. This is the kind of stuff. What is it all about? And as we're talking about these issues about verification, validation, stuff like this, I bring it down to this real basic philosophical level. To try to put it in those terms, what are we really doing? Because I think it gives more of a critical thinking perspective on these things. Now what we've done here, the previous session, by now, you gave the technique, which is important. I've been involved in technique for the last 20 years. I don't give a damn about widgets, I really don't. But you have to have the widgets in terms of the thing that developed the widgets, the theory. Practice in terms of theory, theory in terms of practice. But you not only the theory, you have to have the philosophy of the theory. And this is what I think, I hope, or at least I'd like to think that I've given you right now. Shut my mouth.
One of the things that he said is completely applicable. I mean, I should have said that in requirement engineering, to care not just about what the people want, what it is, but what it is not. because many frequently what is not define what is, what he tried to say. So this is something that's completely related to what we've been talking about. I should have said it, I forgot. That it's very important what it's not. And usually what it's not comes from the boss, from the client. Usually, not always. The user say what it is, and the one who decides who's going is the one that who's going to decide. This is not. So you have to differentiate that client and
The
user.
problem is if you focus on what is not, you're making it be.
Yes,
So you
yes,
have
yes,
to-
yes, yes,
you
yes.
can't-
Not big, infinite.
You have to, so.
What is not is always
recognizing what
infinite.
is not
Like anti-communist, for
basically-
example, that's infinite. You're
So
right.
it's very good to focus
You're right
on
on
what
that.
you want and just let what is not fall away.
But you have to discover what is not.
Yeah, that's why you have iterative processes.
So this is the relationship of the one part of what he was talking about, relating it
Because
to
it's
it.
all a process, it's all
Yeah,
a process.
yeah.
And so we never actually stop, we always get the next one.
Yes,
And
yes.
it's maybe more than one.
And sometimes even
Because it's going in all
yeah,
directions.
he
It's
knows
not-
that we don't agree with each other about the reality is binary, but okay. This is another disagreement we had. But what I'm trying to tell here is, this, what it is and what it is not sometimes change. Sometimes what is not, it is. And sometimes the situation. So they complement each other, and in a learning process, what is not sometimes help us understand.
Right.
And the user can understand what it is. So,
One of the things we have a hard time with in Western society is that we try to focus on this or that or whatever. What's going on here is a real strange thing, and again, I want to argue, I think I can make a fairly decent case, that our neuroanatomy may be evolving to the point where we're going to have to be thinking in a different way other than, when I say thinking, it's very trivially put. That what's happening is this. Let's think this in terms of light, in terms of that. We see either the white, oh, well, it's not the white, it's the black. We have this kind of this real back and forth, buzzing back and forth. But there's something going on here, kind of like that process, that we have to think of the process. And again, very trivially put. It is realizing, here we go, the realization of the process as what we're looking at, the object. And again, it's hard, I'm not sure if we have the vocabulary for it, but that's what it is. We're shifting it's a shift in neuroanatomy, where our apprehension of what is in this terms of this dialectic. I think that's the next phase in our neural development, perhaps. Anyway, enough.